Hi, I'm Yulia, and this is Burning Questions. The topic that has set the internet on fire this week is what's going to happen next in the world after these peace talks with Russia and Ukraine. What can we expect? What can we deduce? What's going on in general? And here today to help us answer these questions is Glen Grant.
Good morning. My name is Glen Grant. I'm a former defence attaché with British Army, and I've worked in Ukraine since 2014, almost non-stop, as an advisor, as a mentor, as a writer, and as a media person, and I'm following everything quite closely. And I'm only just over a week away from having been in Kiev, so I'm fairly up to date with what's going on.
Yeah, well, a lot is going on right these days, and I don't even know how to. I was just talking to a friend the other day on a podcast that we started to sort of try and make better understanding of everything that happens in the world, and we struggled to kind of know where to even start, because I think in this past 2 weeks or past month, actually since Trump took presidency on January 20th, right, or January 6th, it's been kind of enough news for the next decade. And even if we spread them out,
and more.
Yeah, even if they were spread out, it would still be crammed, and we're getting all of that in a month and a half. And there was this a situation with Zelensky and Trump in the Oval Office, and then after that, there were these peace talks, which Russia, I guess, according to a lot of reports from the ISW and the field that they have from mill bloggers and all of that, is going to decline. Because I think a lot of people are disappointed, right, that Zelensky backtracked and decided to take the U.S. up on this offer. I do have my opinions, but what is yours?
I think before I go on to that, I think one's got to look back at all these things, because what's that expression? A perfect storm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who could have predicted that that Europe would go weak to the point of actually being pathetic, not just weak but pathetic. That Putin would seize his opportunity and see the weakness in the West in general, and do what he's doing. That Xi would become the great leader, following in the footsteps of Mao, and try to make China back into some sort of master country in Asia, and that America would, I think, I can put it most easily, overstep the mark of liberalism. So in other words, they just went too far, and the going too far has now been kicked back, and it's kicked back in the form of Trump. And his MAGA group. And I mean, I have to say, I've never seen anything so sickening as listening to the people telling him he's the greatest leader in the universe. I mean, to have one of his potential ambassadors say that this man is the greatest deal maker in the universe. Well, I mean, I haven't actually seen him on the moon trying to make deals yet or anywhere, but it's ridiculous. So then you come to, one could almost say poor little Zelensky, who is battered from all sides at the moment. And much of that is his own fault. Let's be quite blunt about it, because he's allowed Ermak to run the country. He's allowed Ermak to make decisions about people that should never have been made. However the two of them are behaving in terms of finances and what they're taking out of the country, and I have no idea what they're taking out of the country, but it seems to be apparent to everybody that they are taking lots out of the country, then Zelensky deserves all the hassle that he's getting. You can't be a hero on one side and then have half the country think you're dishonest on the other. You've got to have a straightforward act. And in that respect, then what choice did he have? what choice did he have when he was faced with American MAGAs basically peddling Russia's line and basically bullying him and threatening him, which they were, bullying him and threatening him, and leaving him with actually limited choice but to do something to actually to get them off his feet, to get them out of the door. And it could have been worse. I thought that actually what came out of it was a start. It was a start in terms of looking for peace without giving away too much. And now, as we've seen, or as we hear, and I haven't seen anything official yet, Russia has rejected it and actually put in counterclaims that are even harder and worse than even Trump was trying to do. So there we are. We're in the middle of a perfect storm, and the question is where do we go now?
Yeah, it's a difficult one because like when this whole conversation was brought up, I knew that of course Trump is not going to bring a good deal to the table. He's sabotaged the deal and showed weakness and kind of thrown Ukraine into the rapid waters before he was even negotiating. As in, he was not trying to negotiate the best scenario for Ukraine. He clearly was just trying to make a deal to prove to his own ego he could.
Yeah, that he's the person he says he is. Yeah. Yeah,
and then of course Russia. We knew that they're either not going to take the deal or they're going to come back and just come out with the most ridiculous conditions for this deal. So it's, so Ukraine wouldn't take it, so they could reverse it back and be like, see, we're negotiating. They're not willing to take it. But of course, these conditions are just going to be so ludicrous that they're going to be worse than what's already happening. And I think that partially that Zelensky, of course, knew this, and all of our politicians know this because they don't trust the US at this point and don't trust Russia anymore. Okay. But at the same time, it depends on, what Trump is going to do, because he did say that he's going to continue supplying Ukraine, and if he can't force Russia into a peace deal, he's going to give Ukraine more ability to strike and come back at Russia with a bigger force. But that's if they can't force them into the deal. This is a very careful phrasing on this behalf, right. Though it doesn't seem like it, because technically Russia is still willing to do a deal. Russia just wants most of our country, the territory.
Well, I think it wants all of it. I don't think it wants most of it. I think it wants all of it. It wants a puppet state. Let's be blunt about it.
Yeah.
And I think, that I'd be very, very surprised if we didn't see Putin going back to his parliament demanding that even more of the country is Russia.
Yeah, exactly.
They've taken a slice. Now then it'll be a bit more and then a bit more to give him power to mobilize or something. It's not a nice state of affairs at the moment when you have to rely on someone who is as unreliable as Trump.
Yeah, exactly.
And with a bunch of sycophants who will win the world's award for sycophancy.
Exactly.
If there was one, and if there isn't, then Trump will make one and hand it out. It's unbelievable. But I think I've said it many times that this is not going away. This war is not going away, and Ukraine is still, the government is still not taking it seriously. We're not taking it seriously. We're still bumbling along and hoping peace will come or something else will come or someone will give us 1,000 more aircraft or something like this. And these things are not going to happen.
Yeah.
So Ukraine as a country has to actually to start getting hard with itself, not nasty with its own people, but trying to use its own people to get nasty with Russia. Because many times it seems to me like the government is actually supporting Russia against the hardworking people of Ukraine. So there's things to be done still.
Well, I mean, I think that the reality of the matter is, right, that, and well, we can say that Europe has woken up as many times as we want. It's sure taking some steps,
It
like,
still hasn't.
yeah. I mean, Macron is like somehow the fact that Macron is being the most reasonable leader in Europe at the moment, at least on words, is already says enough, right? Because I think I expected it from anyone, but not him. But at the same time, it's like Europe doesn't understand that this is World War III, and it's just
and we're in it. We're in it.
We're in it. It's just
we're in it.
Because in reality, I think most people also don't understand that this is World War III, because we're used to thinking of a world war as a fight for territory between global powers. But in reality, it's the fight for the changing of the world order and who comes out as a superpower and who doesn't. And that's exactly what's happening. And because we live in 2025, not in 1940s, right? It's not necessarily just trench warfare. A lot of it doesn't need to be done with trench warfare. It can be done with information warfare. And the fact that America is taking a closer stance to Russia and China and North Korea, both on its own citizens and in international politics, threatening allies, right, is very, very concerning, because at least in the previous world wars, we had America on the right side of history, right?
Yeah, I mean, previous world wars, you could always be sure that there were some people that were going to go on the wrong side, like Bulgaria. It's a standard joke in the country that we always choose the losing side. And with the current president, I think they're doing it again. But generally in the world, we've been able to rely upon the democracies.
Yeah.
And here we are, actually. Is America still a democracy? That is a really, really hard thing to judge. I mean, certainly it's lost law. It does not have the three pillars. The pillar of law and justice is now broken completely. And it's not just broken; it's absent, actually, because people can say things and people can break the law, and unless you're, and I hate to say this, but it's largely true. Unless you're black and young, it will be ignored. If you're black and young, you go to prison for 40 years, and which is criminal. But that so that we could never have predicted that, not in the way that it was. I mean, I think I was beginning to understand it during the first Trump presidency, after he'd been in about 18 months, and I knew, let's just hope that people don't ever bring this man back. But when after January the 6th, he wasn't arrested, and then he wasn't arrested for stealing all the secrets. I mean, for goodness sakes, if a young soldier has one secret document in his cabin or in his home, he's going to get 20 years.
Yeah,
20 years inside, and Trump had, an army's worth of secret documents, and nothing happened to him. And that should worry all of us. That should worry all of us, because it's we've relied on US for a long time. I have a feeling still that a lot of countries in Europe are still hoping beyond hope that actually America is going to look after them and everything else, and America will be okay. But they should look hard at the evidence at the moment. They'll look after you until it is not in their interest. And
exactly.
Trump's interest.
Yeah, not in America's interest. It's in Trump's
interest. Not in America's interest, because most of my American friends are absolutely in stress, I think is the right about what's happening. Keep going. Sorry.
I think the interesting parallel here is, right, like I keep seeing online how people are comparing the United States to The Handmaid's Tale. I don't know if you've read the novels or you've seen the TV show, but it's interesting because most people are comparing like the extremes, right? But I think that what needs to be compared, and why like a Christian nationalist state is really a reality, that it could be a reality there, is based on like flashbacks that these handmaids had back, where, you know, there were little things like you never get. In fact, I think the whole series opens up with a phrase of like, you know, the tyrants never do this all at once. They chip away at your rights little to little. Because if you were thrown into a bath of boiling water, you'd jump straight out because you knew that you would boil to death, right? But if someone just kept turning up the heat little by little, you would boil to death before you even understood what happened. And that's one of the things that I compare to America not being a democracy these days, is taking away the rights, but like, in a sense that, you know, back in the flashbacks of Handmaid's Tale, one of the women got pregnant and she wanted to terminate the pregnancy. And she went to what she thought was an abortion clinic, but it was really a crisis pregnancy center where they're doing everything to convince you not to get an abortion. And that exists in America today. Your husband had to sign off for your birth control pills. That exists in America today. In some states, it's not even up to the husband. You just can't have it. That's it. Right. There was this other thing where when the laws weren't yet in place, like the super restrictive to women laws, a lot of corporations started adjusting to the cultural shift before it was actually legally required. So, for instance, coffee shops started firing female baristas and replacing them with male baristas because it was very evident that it was a war on women, right? And that's happening in America today. The DEI, right, like diversity, inclusion, that's being taken out by corporations, even though this is not a demand by law.
Yeah.
But they're adjusting to the climate, to the political climate beforehand. And we're seeing all of these signs. And the most interesting thing that I thought was a parallel that wasn't verbalized in The Handmaid's Tale, and why I think that America is not a democracy, is because one of the populations that they went after in The Handmaid's Tale in order to be able to sort of create this republic, right, where women were breeding stock, was they went after the disenfranchised white male that has never really struggled, but is currently going through struggles because of like the job market or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So a population, young population, that's easy to manipulate. Trump's base of the people that voted him in are white men that think they're disenfranchised when they're not.
When they're not.
And I think this is the most glaring parallel there too, because that's young men that now hate women, hate minorities, hate immigrants, hate everything, right? Because they think
except Musk, who they love, who they think is the divine savior. I mean, this is the whole of this sort of Christian bit flabbergasts me, because I mean the actions of these people are self-confessed Christians, but their actions in the last couple of weeks have been anything but Christian. I mean, they've been the complete reverse of Christianity. I just struggle with this.
So, you know, this is actually, and I hate how much I've been comparing this to The Handmaid's Tale, because I feel like I've binge watched the series in like a couple of weeks because I've never seen it before, but I knew the premise. And one of the main architects of this society called Gilead in this TV show, he was an economist, and he did not believe in any of because it was based on religion, right? It was based on like religion, on procreation and like hardcore Christianity and God and all of this stuff. So he was an economist who was an atheist, who did not believe in any of this. And for him, it was an experiment on how he can apply his economic model. And when he was talking to someone very candidly about why he created Gilead, he was saying, well, I wanted, so like his sort of, he meant well, because he wanted a greener society and more birth and like civilization to not die out. And he was like, it's just religious nut jobs were the easiest to, like, I regret that I had to go through religious nut jobs to make it happen, because it's the easiest population to sort of get the idea. And I'm looking at America today, And I'm sorry, if someone's listening and they're like MAGA or whatever, but you are a religious nut job, because whatever these people are doing is anti-Christian. And whatever the Gilead was doing in The Handmaid's Tale was also anti-Christian. It's just that whoever is behind all of this, which is Trump and Musk in this scenario, they understand that you are the easiest electorate to manipulate, because you already believe, right? Like, you're already dedicated and devoted to something. So they're using your core beliefs and they're twisting them in order for you to follow it, because they're basically convincing you that your kind of moral and ethical code lies in this, which is like directly, proportionally, and directly on the other side of what your beliefs are supposed to be.
Yeah, no, I know, I can follow all that and agree with that sort of sentiment completely. I mean, it's worried me for a long time, and I just wonder whether, to go back to Europe, I just wonder whether the leadership in Europe actually grasp how bad everything is, and actually how bad things are in US, because I do not see anything that I've read in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks from the US that says anybody's going to sober up. On the contrary, it actually looks to me as though it's going to get worse. And when you've got a vice president talking about, annexing other countries, and a president talking about annexing neighbors, effectively saying that we're going to go to war to get your territory, then and this is the West. This is the democratic West. This is not Putin. This is, we've got someone who's actually acting in the same way that Putin is acting, if not worse yet. Not worse yet.
Worse in a sense that, like, you do expect that from a dictator. You do expect that from a country like Russia. You understand why a country like Russia would be doing these things. But to see that coming from the leader of the democratic world is just ludicrous on so many different extents, because it's just, this is not okay. Threatening countries with expansion is not okay. Wanting to take Greenland is not okay. Acting towards Canada the same way that Russia is acting towards Ukraine is not okay. Making these jokes about the 51st state is not okay. Also, the hypocrisy of, we have homeless people, we can't send money to Ukraine, and then sending billions to Israel the next day is not okay, because it just shows that you're acting in your own interests.
Huge hypocrisy. And but I mean, that's also, it's actually become almost a trademark of the Trump and the MAGA style, is that hypocrisy is rife throughout everything they do and say. And you can't trust people that are like that. Or trust an organization that's like that. I mean, you just don't know when they go to Russia what they're going to say. I mean, they'll be telling you one thing, but are they really actually doing that? Can we trust them to actually to be telling the truth when they go to Russia?
We can't.
And I don't think we can anymore.
Because also with Russia, there is this one point that I think is also something that kind of is said, but sort of read between the lines said, right, is that we don't know if this government is a Russian proxy government, because there is a lot of this debate between, like, the Manchurian candidate, right, and just Trump being an egotistical person, right? And we don't know if this is a Russian proxy government or a Russian sympathetic government, or it's both, right, where certain things are done by them as a Russian proxy without Trump not comprehending what he's doing, because in reality, he's probably a useful idiot. And, like, I personally don't think he's a Russian agent. I think he's a Russian asset, in a sense that he's stupid enough to fall for that, right? Because it does seem like his ego is at the helm of all of it, where he thinks that Putin, this big, great leader that he keeps, slobbering all over all the time about how great he is, respects him, right? And that's why he has this dynamic with him, and therefore ends up doing Russia favorable stuff, because basically, this cool kid at school likes him. But in reality, the cool kid at school, which is Putin in this scenario, he doesn't like you. He's using you, and he's gonna.
He has no liking for anybody, and I should think he despises Trump. I'm sure he does. Despises his weakness, despises his stupidity, despises, his lying, which is almost Putin-esque in its way. But I would just. I've been thinking about this and talking to a lot of people in the last few years, and my concern is not that we actually have a slice of pro-Russian that is vertical down the Republican Party, but actually we have a slice that is horizontal across the top of America, and that we actually probably have people in the Democratic Party who are equally swayed. And the evidence for that is that this is how it is in the other countries. This is how it is in Britain, in France, in Germany, Hungary, that you can't actually trust anybody at that level to have not been compromised, infiltrated. And so, when you've got that, then you have to start realizing that it's a different ball game altogether. It's not just a MAGA ball game. They are just the dupes at the moment, you could say. But across the top, it's been quite clear to me for quite a long time that quite a lot of the European senior people were swayed, and now we're seeing it. With Chico and others, we're actually seeing it visibly. Thankfully, Romania has actually dug back. But if I am right in my thesis, then what we have is a completely different problem, because then you're talking about the kleptocracy or oligarchy. Not all of them, because thank God there are some of them are wonderful, but the kleptocracy and oligarchy are almost back to the 1800s in their way of thinking about the serfs, slaves and serfs. And so society is then just vulnerable and just there to work, to do things for others who've got the money. And that is how it appears to me. I'd be delighted to be argued off that space. But arguably, some of the actions of Biden were no worse than some of the actions of Trump. However one looks at it, he did not. He pulled back from helping Ukraine when it needed it most.
Yeah, it's because I think in some way what Biden did is a little worse than what Trump is doing, but from a moral standpoint, right? Because Trump is just evil. Trump is an egotistical, evil person, and you expect him to be evil, right? Biden understood the risks of not doing anything with the situation that we're facing, and he understood the risks of not getting these things done, knowing that Trump might or will become president, right? We still had months on his hands or a month and a half on his hands after the election, even more, to deal with these things, and to give Ukraine what Ukraine needed, and to authorize these orders, and to put contingencies in place.
Right. And he still didn't act. Didn't act.
Exactly.
And, not only did he not act, he was almost, counteracting and actually stopping the things that were needed. And I just look back at when I was on BBC 2 days ago, and the journalist asked me about the support from America, and I said, well, actually, it hasn't been even remotely what it could have been. Not even remotely. I mean, when you look at what all the weapons and equipment in the Nevada desert, and you realize that Biden and Trump, let's make it both of them, have delivered 31 tanks. Oh, whoopee-dee.
Yeah.
31 tanks out of the thousands that they have.
Or if we look at the Arizona airfield, that's literally called a graveyard, because of the amount of aircraft that's sitting there. And everyone says, oh, it's not viable aircraft. But you want to tell me that out of thousands and thousands upon thousands fighter jets, you can't swap parts between all of them and find a few that work? You totally can.
And when we're talking about numbers, small numbers like 10s and 20s, then out of those thousands, it will be hundreds, not 10s and 20s. And I mean, I think we all know that had at the beginning of the war, had America flown over all the A-10s, which are actually relatively easy to fly and fight, and handed those over, there would have been a completely different war. In fact, it could have been a completely different war 6 or 7 times.
Exactly. It could have been
since 2014, not since 2022. We could have stopped 2022 had UK, America, Germany put a few battalions of troops inside Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. But we've given blankets instead. Obama
blankets and old field hospitals and Humvees that weren't even working properly in many cases, with no spares.
Well, and then Trump gave javelins, right? And these javelin, and now he's holding it over the entire world as if he was like the savior of everything, because he gave a handful of javelins to Ukraine, and then blackmailed our president with aid in order to get his political agenda against Biden satisfied, right? And it's just this is the thing. It's when people say that Ukraine is America's proxy, it isn't, but it is America's playground,
Yeah.
And in reality, unfortunately, neither the United States, Europe, understands it better, but selfishly, because Europe sort of has this buffer where oh, we're next. So it actually concerns them. The US knows that it's not going to concern them
until Putin has a go at Alaska.
Exactly. Which is likely going to be the last on the list, right? So it's
quite likely.
Yeah.
Quite likely, you're right. Last on the list, but I mean, people are talking about it, and so far, when they talk about things, unfortunately, a lot of those things come to fruition. Yeah. But one has to look at this. What are we going to do? How do we fight this? This is a serious question, because we can't just give in. We can't allow Ukraine to be steamrolled.
See, this is one of the things that bothers me greatly, because when I think about it, right, historically, every time in every war and every sort of major event like this, right, going back hundreds and hundreds of years, and I'm saying way before World War I, right, good always wins at the end of the day, right? But at what price? Because if we look at World War II, at the end of the day, Germany was defeated and Russia will be defeated, right? But at what cost? Because Germany was defeated by completely erasing Poland and 8 million people out of existence, to say the least, right? So what is, I feel like we are going to have to be the sacrificial horse until everyone takes this seriously. Because we are already being the sacrificial horse and we're already losing a lot. It's just not enough.
It is, but the trouble is, as I see it, is that Ukraine is losing more than it should do because it hasn't taken this seriously. And because Europe hasn't taken it seriously behind them, and because America hasn't taken it seriously behind them. But you can't blame those two when the front itself is not actually, I don't mean the soldiers, but when the organization that is there is still not anywhere near efficient, is still not functioning as it should do to fight an army the size of Russia's. And that's a major problem, because I think what's been happening is people have been taking Zelensky's lines of "it'll be over this year, it'll be over this year, it'll be over this year," and people believe it, and people have been believing, here we got peace coming. Oh, whoopee-dee. UK will bring troops in to police the peace. Well, does nobody in UK government understand what Russia is like? Do they not actually grasp that this is just, this is just wasting time, actually wasting time and energy that is precious, that should actually be spent on making the system ready to do the real job, not someone else's peace, policing someone else's peace. That's pathetic. It is really pathetic, because it must be obvious to a blind man that Putin is not about to stop this war.
It's sort of like, you know what this reminds me of? It's kind of, from like a relatable perspective to most people that I guess don't relate to this, it's, when you're in a relationship and there is a person who consistently keeps letting you down, like let's say, they're 2 hours late, but throughout the entire time, instead of telling you ahead of time that they're going to be 2 hours late, they just keep texting you, oh, I'm almost there, I'm almost there, I'm almost there.
I'm on my way.
Because they're afraid of disappointing you. And they think that by giving you these little updates, this is less disappointing than had they told you ahead of time that they're going to be 2 hours late. This is what the Western world is doing with this war, is that they're trying to exhaust every possibility to end this before actually doing what it's going to take to end this, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the same as like, for me to not be mad at you, all you have to say is, hey, I don't know when I'm going to get out of work tonight. I might be massively late. If that works for you, then, then let's do that.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, let's do another day. But instead, you keep delaying it and delaying it and delaying it.
You go and sit in the bar and wait.
Yeah.
Getting tired and frustrated and miserable. Yeah, and you can feel this in Ukraine. You can feel that, and my friends on the front line are saying, is this going to happen? Is this going to happen? And I keep saying to them, no, it's not. You just got to get realistic. It's not going to happen. You're going to have to keep going. And this sort of quasi peace idea is I think it's it's. As you said, it's Trump's way of trying to show how clever he is and how to get his Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, and it's kind of, I think that the people that listen to these sort of, oh, the war is going to end today, oh, Trump is an amazing negotiator coming from Zelensky, what they're forgetting, because everyday people don't understand politics and the depths of it, like not as much as you and I do, right? Because this is work. So we have to. But realistically, people don't understand that Zelensky is playing politics by saying this, because he needs Trump to believe that Zelensky believes that Trump is this master negotiator. Otherwise, he's not going to give him time of day. And he can't be telling his people, oh, don't worry, this is just me playing a political game. He has to be saying this as if he believes it. Right. But then inadvertently, people in Ukraine start reading the news and they're like, oh, Trump's going to come and he's going to be a great guy. And it's like, no, he's clearly not going to be a great guy. He's awful. And but unfortunately, you can't know that. And it's kind of like a,
And there we are.
Here we are.
Yeah. But I do hope that, the Europeans are meeting, European leaders are meeting, the defense chiefs are meeting. And I really do hope that they are actually now beginning to understand that you can't wish this one away, that you can't just offer money and hope that a bit more to Ukraine is going to help. I mean, I saw one thing, or I read one thing today, and someone said, well, the best thing we can do is support the Ukrainian Defense Forces. Well, it's not. The best thing to do is to come and join in. Understand that, this man is after you as well. You can't just keep pushing, pushing the others forward. Here, take a bit more money and go and die. It's not moral, for starters. And I look back at the clarity with which Churchill faced everything, and the clarity of his words and the clarity of his thinking about, we've got to do this, and the moral. Then the British government, because it wasn't Churchill at the time, but the moral understanding that we had to support Poland, and that if Poland went, we went, and how nearly true that was. And there, but for the grace of God, go us with German passports. But that clarity is missing, and that clarity is missing from everywhere. And it's missing from America, it's missing from Ukrainian government, and it's missing from the European governments, with one or two exceptions.
Well, I think that at least with Europe, now that the United States can't be considered an ally, and there is a lot more danger on Europe's plate, because Europe understands they can't be buying American weapons because America can turn them off at any point. And I don't mean like a kill switch in an airplane, but you can refuse to service them or give details, right? Or like parts, spare parts and stuff. Europe understands that one day Trump, like Article 5 is triggered, and Trump is like, I don't want to be a part of it. So at this point, I think Europe has to act and has to take Ukraine seriously, because now they're concerned, and their security is concerned not by Russia, but by the lack of support from an ally they could normally rely on.
Yeah, you're going into a football match with no goalkeeper.
Literally, quite literally.
Yeah.
This is also the most British reference one could ever give.
Yeah, I saved it from cricket. I didn't think that would be recognised.
I don't think a lot of people would understand cricket.
No. But the Indians would, actually, because North all would understand cricket comments. Yeah. But yes, so.
Well, I guess in this kind of time, we wait and see. I think America has 3 months to either completely turn into a dictatorship, or for Trump to start losing power and people to start rebelling. So depending on which way that goes, I guess we will see.
We can talk again in a couple of months.
Right. Definitely. I think this has become like a couple of months catch up on.
Yeah, that's right. Catch up on the. But let's be both honest about this. Neither of us could have predicted this.
No, not at all. I mean, I could predict that it was going to be bad, but this bad, I don't think anyone could have even imagined.
Me too. I just never imagined anything so violently evil and stupid. It's gone beyond any expectations that I had.
Yeah.
Let's just hope that sanity creeps in somewhere.
Well, that's what I'm, that's where my 3 months comes from. I think 3 to 6 months, 6 months at maximum. And we're going to see if America is going to fall into a dictatorship and tyranny, or if they're going to actually stand up against it, because it depends on what the American people do. Let it happen, or take back the power. Yeah. On that positive note.
On that positive note, yes, we should finish. But thank you for inviting me again. And
I always enjoy conversing with you. I think even with the doom and gloom, it's a very good bounce of ideas.
Yeah, got to keep going. Got to keep going. We're going to win, but we just got to keep going.
Yeah.
No misery, no depression. Just fight.
Yeah, just got to get the ethics in place and
in place. Yeah, absolutely. The ethic and the values in the right box, and then carry on.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Glenn, for being here. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, see you again soon then. Okay.
See you soon.
Bye.
Well, I hope this conversation was as productive and interesting for you as it was for me. I always enjoy speaking to Glenn. And please do subscribe and turn on your notifications if you'd like to see him here again, because he's surely going to visit us in the near future. And of course, like this video, share it with a friend, your mom, your grandma, your grandpa, anyone who might be interested, and leave your questions, suggestions, thoughts, criticism, anything in your mind down below, because I read all of it and I greatly appreciate hearing from you. Till next time.